that we've had a chance to learn about CSS and how they can be used to stylize a web page, I'm going to take the web page that I created in Unit 10, and I'm going to add a CSS file to it in order to stylize it. So if you go into the folder where my HTML file is contained, along with all of the other resources that are available to it, if I double click on the HTML file, I will open it up in a browser. If I right click on that file and I say that I want to open it with, I'm going to choose a text editor like Notepad to open it, and then I'm going to put the two of them side by side. So the first thing that we're going to do is above the header, I am going to add a tag that says doc type HTML, an exclamation point doc type .html. This tells the browser what kind of document it is about to display. Specifically, it's telling the browser the page is using HTML5. It isn't actually an HTML tag, it's more of a declaration. The next thing that we need to do is to link the HTML doc to a style sheet. So I'm going to update the header with, I'm going to actually change the title to "This is my styled web page," and then I'm going to add this tag that says that we are linking to a style sheet, and then I need to give the reference to the name of the style sheet, and in order to reference a style sheet, I probably need to have a style sheet. So I'm going to create a new document. We will call it styles.css. So we'll save it as styles.css. And since I'm in Notepad, I'm going to need to save it as all files. And then the .css will tell it what kind of a file that it is. I'm going to put it in the exact same location as my HTML file. If you wanted to put it in a different location, such as a resources folder, then we would include the path to the folder under the href and not just the file name. Now, the one thing that I would mention is that HTML is not case sensitive. So these tags can be in uppercase or the tags can be in lowercase. Either one works. So it looks like we were trying to make some styling to the body of our website itself. We're actually going to do this styling inside of our CSS file instead of in the HTML file. So I'm going to go into my CSS file, my styles.css, and I'm going to add a selector. So let's add an element selector. I'm going to say body. So this is the element that I'm trying to affect. Inside of there, I'm going to tell it that I want a font family Aleph, and I want the background color to be a light yellow. And so far, this will be the only thing in my style sheet. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back to my HTML file. Notice that we are connected to the styles.css, which means that I no longer need these kind of stylings. And as I said before, HTML can be case sensitive. And so I'm just going to save this file now that I have removed those stylings. And then I'm going to refresh my browser, which is open on the right-hand side of my screen. I'm going to just press this round arrow to see if we have indeed affected the background color of my entire page, as well as the default font family or font face. I think the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of headers to the top of my page just so that they will stand out. So inside of the body, I added a couple of lines. The first text says Unit 11, and the second says stylize my web page. I'm going to make the first one heading 1. So I'm going to open the tag. I'll come on to the end over at the end, and I will close heading 1. And then the second one, I'm going to make a heading 2, second level. So we will change this one to close the tag called heading 2. And then I'm going to come back into my style sheet, and I am going to stylize these 2 headings. If I refresh my browser now, let me save this file to see if it'll pick up those 2 new lines that I have added, and I can see the 2 of them at the top. The first one is a heading 1. The second one is a heading 2. I'm going to stylize heading 2 first. So I'm going to add an element selector for heading 2 or H2. And then I have the opening and the closing parentheses, and inside of there, I'm going to change the color of heading 2 to light green. And then I'm going to change the text alignment to center. Each one of these individual elements are going to be followed by a semicolon. So in my body, the font family Aleph was followed by a semicolon. The body color yellow was followed by a semicolon. And each one of these individual elements are also followed by a semicolon. So if I save this, I shouldn't have to make any changes at all to my HTML file. And now I can see that my heading 2 is a light green and it is centered. So next we're going to add a CSS rule for header 1. So if I go into my style sheet, I'm actually going to make this an ID selector. And if you remember, an ID selector starts with a pound sign. I'm going to give it the name page title. And then in between the opening and closing curly braces, I'm going to change the color to navy, the text alignment to center, the background color to light gray, and then padding to 15 pixels. Now, in order to incorporate this ID selector into my web page, I'm going to go inside of the opening tag for the header 1. I'm going to use the keyword ID equals because this is an ID selector. And then in quotes, I am going to put the name, which was page title, and double quotes. And if you remember, ID selectors are created specifically for individual elements. So I'm going to save both the web page and the style sheet. And then when I refresh my browser, I should see if we have a change in my header 1.